getting threatened by a trans friend, receiving threats just for being pro-life, and they're pushing non-binary ideology in schools now. All this and so much more is coming up in today's Voicemail Friday episode of the Bread versus Everyone podcast, my daily show where we take on the craziest ideas from across the internet, media, and our politics, all from an independent perspective. On Fridays, I take your voice notes with your woke horror stories, your personal life situations and scenarios, and your questions for me, and I listen to them and respond and give my thoughts. So the link to send one of those in is in the description. And guys, before we get into things, I do want to apologize about not bringing you a Thursday show. I'm traveling for a bachelor party and my schedule just got too chaotic and I had to kind of prioritize other things. So apologies about that, but we will be back to our normal scheduled programming next week. Now, up first, we're going to hear a voicemail from somebody who was repeatedly threatened by a trans classmate who seems to think that that's okay or acceptable behavior. Really not sure why, but we're going to find out. Let's listen.
Hey, Brad, just in case if you got my name wrong, my name is pronounced Isaiah. Anyway, back in high school, when I was in high school, I was going out for a Robin Hood play. I wanted to be Prince John, but I later got the Friar Tuck role, which is actually a better role for me, but thank goodness I didn't shave my head. Anyway, when I told another person who was auditioning that I wanted Prince John, they kept saying, "Oh man, if you get that role, I'm going to kill you. Like, I'm literally going to kill you." And obviously, when somebody says that they're going to kill you, you feel threatened and you feel unsafe. So I told the casting director what happened. They're like, "This is not something that should happen," and they later banned that person. I misgendered this person one time, called it she, but later they were like, "I'm a he," when they had long hair, makeup, and a skirt on. Later on, when she came over, it's like, "Hey, bro, why did you get me banned? Tell them I'm joking." And I told them, "I'm sorry, but don't you realize that saying 'I'm going to kill you' is actually a bad thing to say to another person? That is an actual threat." And yeah, that person's been angry at me since then. And I'm glad I don't deal with that anymore. So what do you think about this, Brad?
Wow. Thanks for the note and for sharing this story. I certainly have thoughts. First, though, what is it with y'all and your drama clubs? Always having drama and crazy stuff going down. I was not a drama kid. My boyfriend did theater, so he was in a bunch of musicals and plays and stuff. I did not do any theater in high school. I played sports. I did mock trial, so I was a little nerdy, but it's not like, oh, I'm too cool for theater. I just didn't do it. It wasn't my experience. Is it really this dramatic always? Are there always these feuds and these fights? And is the gender stuff always such a big aspect of it? I'm curious if that's new, because we've heard a bunch of stories like this. But first off, I mean, it's not okay to threaten someone just repeatedly to tell them you're going to kill them in school, in a workplace, in life. That's not acceptable behavior. So you were not in the wrong for reporting this person. As for the misgendering, I mean, listen, first off, you have every right to misgender someone if you so choose. That is your free speech. Now, I would probably accommodate in some circumstances people, but if you're demanding he, him pronouns, but you are presenting with long hair and makeup and all this, that's not super reasonable. And you don't really have a right to get mad at people who don't use your correct pronouns in that kind of a scenario. So it's all about navigating these situations in a way that will cause the least chaos and stress for you, but still standing on what's right. And honestly, it sounds like you did that. It really doesn't sound like you did anything wrong, but it does sound like some people have no chill and some people have also gotten too comfortable. Like, just because you're some member of some minority group doesn't mean you can do whatever you want and then cry discrimination if you face consequences. At least it certainly should not mean that. Not in my view. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. do remember that you can send in your voice note with your woke horror stories or whatever you want to tell me about at the link in the description. Make sure you're subscribed. Remember also, you can listen to the Brad versus Everyone podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, whatever podcast platform. So you don't only have to watch on YouTube. You can take me on the go with you. And now we're going to hear some political horror stories from seventh grade after this. Guys, I've had threats sent to my home before, so I understand better than anyone how important it is to get your personal information off the internet. That's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, Aura. If you've ever wondered how spammers get your phone number or why your email inbox is flooded with spam, well, here's why. There are companies called data brokers that sell your data. They do it without your consent, and they make millions selling it to marketers, scammers, and even stalkers. And while they're legally required to move your information if you ask, they make the process confusing and hard on purpose. That's why I recommend today's sponsor, Aura, to my family and friends. They take care of the hard part, automatically removing your information from all of these sites and keeping it off. I use Aura to get my address taken off the internet so it's harder for haters to harass me and to decrease the endless robocalls and spam emails. And you can too. Plus, if anything does happen, Aura includes $5 million in identity theft insurance protection, and they have US fraud experts ready to help 24/7. Try Aura for 14 days for free at aura.com/Polumbo. In those 2 weeks, you'll discover where your data is being sold. I'm not leaving myself vulnerable, and you shouldn't either. Okay, guys, now we're going to hear from a seventh grader about the political extremism that is taking over the mind of a seventh grade classmate. Jeez Louise. Let's listen to this.
Hello, Brad. So my name is Ariana, and I attend seventh grade at a middle school. So I share science with this one girl. Let's call her Lily. And Lily is super woke, just for a seventh grader. So I overheard her one day talking. She sits at my table, which is a misfortune. So Lily says, "Oh, I wish I had a button to kill Trump." And then she said, "Oh, same for Elon." She wishes that the bullet never missed, that Trump died, and many terrible things. It's really bad. The worst part is this is only seventh grade. It's really terrible. I feel bad. I don't know what her parents have done to her. This is seventh grade. We shouldn't be so political yet. It's just sad.
Wow. So thank you for the dispatch from seventh grade. It's kind of wild to me that I have seventh graders listening to this podcast. Hopefully, you have parental approval for doing that because uh, some of the content we discuss is obviously, a little bit more grown up, but seems like you're smart and sharp as a seventh grader if you're following along with such brilliant and charming insight. However, I mean, you are right. This is a really disturbing sentiment for anyone to have. But we've covered it on the show. This is sadly kind of a widespread sentiment among Democrats and left of center Americans. Not to say they're all like this, certainly not, but pluralities to slim majorities actually, we've looked at polling, think that it's partially justified to kill Trump or kill Elon. And I mean, that's a really scary view because it does threaten to kind of undo the fabric of our civilization, take us down a path towards civil war. It's obviously, just any kind of murder is wrong. Human life is sacred. It would make our political climate even more unhinged and insane if anything like that were to have happened. So it's obviously not good. But for your classmate, this seventh grader, I have kind of mixed feelings. I'm not going to judge a 12-year-old girl or whatever that hard. I mean, who among us didn't have some ridiculous opinions or beliefs or say or do incredibly stupid things when we were that young? Like the frontal cortex is not frontal cortexing. So I'm not going to judge her too hard, though hopefully she kind of grows out of this extremism. I will say that my thought instantly goes to the parents, as did yours, right? What is she watching at home? What is she hearing at home? How closely related to facts is it? Or is she hearing extreme hyperbole about like they're going to be putting the gay people in camps or other kinds of things that are not in fact true, but might prompt someone to end up in this kind of radical place? I am concerned. I would say, though, that if you hear your classmate express that kind of sentiment yourself, you probably should report that to a teacher or guidance counselor or someone like that, because anybody openly talking about violence in school, that's a little concerning and something that should be addressed. So good on you for having your head set on straight at such a young age. And yikes, I hope that that's an outlier example and not what most seventh grade classrooms are dividing themselves about. Okay, up next, we're going to hear from somebody who is having non binary ideology taught in their high school. Let's take a listen.
Hello, Brad. My name is Matthias, and I am a high school junior from Spain. So, a couple weeks ago, our school brought in a guy to talk about LGBT issues. He had a bald head, a full beard, but still he called himself non-binary, and just centered the entire 1 hour talk pretty much about being non-binary and how they needed to be respected. Now, I am a trans guy who hasn't started his transition yet because I want to wait till I'm older. And that was very annoying because I don't even consider non-binary people inside our community. Also, college entering exams are very hard in Spain, and they need years in advance to prepare for. We are already preparing for them, and my Spanish class was interrupted to bring in this guy to talk about something ridiculous. This was very annoying too because the Spanish exam specifically is very hard. And I don't know, I just feel like this talk, especially non-binary people, should be led to the parents because we're all a bunch of minors. And also, this guy kept making a lot of sex jokes, like the whole talk, just gay, suggestive jokes. It was very annoying. Anyways, let me know what you think. Bye.
I'm horrified. What do you mean? This guy is coming in and making sex jokes. That's extremely inappropriate. Now, it's a little bit hard to pass too much judgment just because like Spanish and European culture about this stuff is so much different than American, but I can only think about it in an American context, and that would be totally inappropriate to do in a high school here. Not okay. And I will just say, like, I'm glad that you kind of have your head on straight and realize that you should wait till you're older to make any choices that you can't undo, because your brain is still developing until you're like 25. A lot of these things related to your gender identity or being trans cannot be undone. So definitely take your time with that and wait till you're an adult. And then, if you go through counseling, if that it truly is the right thing for you, then maybe pursue it. But I'm glad you're not going into anything hasty on that front. Now, I'll also say I would have been so annoyed to be studying for exams and have any crap like this disrupted. Not even in this case, it's ridiculous, incoherent propaganda, but even if it was something like, fine, why are you doing it right before big exams and during the hardest class? Like, that would drive me, and I was a type A student, that would have actually made me crash out. But on the actual non-binary thing, this is an incoherent ideology. This is a sexist ideology that starts from a false premise. In reality, sex is binary, and almost every human being is easily categorizable as male or female based on their reproductive system. And then, based off like a crude understanding of sex stereotypes, suggests that like if you're too feminine, you might not really be a man, or if you're too masculine, you might not really be a woman. I really think that ideology has no place in society, and that we should just be accepting of gender nonconforming people. Like, oh, she's a woman, but she's super masculine in her appearance sometimes, and doesn't like traditionally girly things, and that's totally cool. Or yes, he's a man, but he's flamboyant and feminine, and he even likes to wear a little bit of makeup. all of that should just be okay and cool. Like, sure, all right, doesn't mean you're not male or female. And I'm particularly alarmed by the idea of presenting teenagers with this ideology from an authority figure in this kind of context, because teenagers are already vulnerable and susceptible to these kinds of ideas being pushed on them, especially because, a lot of young people, I know I did, have self-esteem issues, have body issues, are coming to grips with maybe a different sexuality or so many things that exposing them to that just seems sinister to me and really not okay. And I don't understand. I can think of all these negative things associated with it and literally zero positivity or good outcomes. So I think that's really not great. And I sure hope that's not happening here in the United States. Although in some pockets of the country, I would not be shocked if they were teaching kids about non binary in high school. Okay. Up next, we're going to hear from somebody who's gotten some extremely disturbing threats just for being outspoken in her pro-life beliefs. Let's take a listen.
Hi, Brad. My name is Lauren, and it's less of a story and more of something that's happened so frequently at this point that I just feel the need to mention it so frequently that I unfortunately have a buttload of screenshots. But I am outwardly pro-life. I'm outwardly against abortion, and I have got a unholy amount of SA threats to my 3-year-old and 6-month-old daughters. It has become something that is almost stalkerish. Some of these people have come to my comments on my Instagram posts or sent me messages. I've gone on and off of private Instagram. People have somehow found my email addresses, my personal addresses, and sent me literal, I hope that your daughter gets SA'd, I hope that you get SA'd, I hope blah, 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 all because I'm pro-life. And it is a very unfortunate but frequent occurrence. And I just thought that that might be something you'd be a good commentator on, being an independent middle ground perspective. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Wow. I mean, thank you for sharing. That's really like a very vulnerable story and very scary. And I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. That is not okay. And I would say the same thing if you were a pro-choice activist. Like, what part of people's education or parenting was wrong where they didn't get it through their thick skulls that it's not okay to threaten to sexually assault people? And that particularly, I would be horrified and my heart would go out to you if you were talking about I was a pro-life activist and people saying they wanted to essay me. The kids, though, what kind of sick demon, what kind of demonic spirit would invoke someone's young infant children because and threaten to do terrible things to them or suggest they hope that terrible things happen to them because of that person's political advocacy? What did the baby do? That's insane. That is diagnostic of a sick and disturbed soul. So the best thing you can do is block these people. If it crosses a certain threshold, you could contact your local police. They're probably not going to be very helpful. Trust me, as a public figure, as a journalist, as a commentator with sometimes unpopular opinions, I have received threats before. There's not a ton that they can necessarily do, but it can't hurt to put some of that stuff on the record or file reports. But I'm so sorry you have to deal with that, and it's really unacceptable, and that exists independently of whether you agree with your views on abortion, which people should leave nuance for the fact that it's really a complicated and deeply emotional issue that people of good faith could come down on different sides of. And it doesn't mean they're evil or bad. And it certainly doesn't mean terrible things should happen to their children. So I'm really sorry you had this experience. Hearing stuff like this makes me sad because I imagine it's something of an outlier example, but the toxicity of our discourse, that is a broader problem. And people need to stop dehumanizing the people that disagree with them, stop wishing the worst on them, and maybe leave some space for the fact that, I might think this person has the totally wrong idea for society. I think their views are really harmful. Maybe they actually are coming from a good place. And whether I would agree with you on every abortion policy or not, I'm pretty confident you are coming from a good place, and I'm so sorry that happened to you. But thank you for sharing, and don't let them win. When they send you those kinds of messages, they're trying to cow you into silence, right? Like scare you so you shut up. And to whatever extent you're able, I would not give in to that, and I would keep stating your beliefs proudly and strongly, not cave to a heckler's veto. But what do you guys think? Can you believe that story? I'm still kind of horrified by that one. Up next, we're going to hear from somebody who had a really horrifying experience with a person in their life who was interested in diaper play. Yes, those are words that I actually had to say on the podcast today. Let's take a listen to this.
Hey Brad, I just wanted to let you know you're really awesome and I love watching you every day. So my woke horror story is that I was in a fandom community. I made friends with a transgender woman, and while we were at conventions, I would treat this person exactly like a woman as per the woke standards. And I would let them go into the bathroom with me. I would hug them. I would let them help me with into my costume. And it wasn't until later that I found out this person was into diaper play and also was apparently a self-professed pedophile. So, yeah, I realized, I connected the dots. This person was most likely transitioning in order to live out his dreams of being a little girl in real life, or perhaps to get closer to children. I don't know. It was just crazy to think that by woke standards, I would have to treat this creepy man as a woman. So, yeah, crazy.
Wow. That is horrifying. And I'm sorry for you because it really sounds like your trust and your privacy was violated by somebody who was not what you thought they were. And oh my gosh, this is so disturbing. It really concerns me that there are people out there in the world like this. It's important to note that, of course, that is not representative of all or most or trans people or non-binary people or anything like that. But I take your point, though, that this is the problem with what some people on the kind of woke left advocate for, which is basically just like self-ID. You are whatever you say you are, no questions asked, no diagnoses needed, no verification process, just that's their truth. So if they feel like a woman that day, open up the women's locker room. Obviously, that is problematic. And it's not because, like, oh, trans people are dangerous or anything like that. No, it's because dangerous people can and will exploit those loopholes to get access to people and to make other people uncomfortable. And it sounds like that's what happened here. It doesn't even sound like this is a person who would actually meet any traditional definition of being trans. It sounds like it's just a perv and a predator who seized on that as a way to get closer to potential victims. That's horrifying. I'm really sorry you had to go through that, but wow. Thank you for sharing and for your vulnerability with all of us. Up next, we're going to hear from a listener in Canada, because when I get depressed about the absolute state of our country, well, there's always even crazier stuff happening abroad. Let's take a listen.
Hello, Brad. My name is Wolf, also known as Lupo. I have been watching your show for about 6 or 7 days straight here. I've binged a lot of your videos because it's been very refreshing to see someone who is also center-right and libertarian who doesn't believe in the identity politics, especially coming from the gay community. Although I'm straight, I'm a firm believer in do what you want, don't bring the kids in it. As I was saying in my comment that inspired me to send you this, I am a Canadian, and we have some wacky laws, from getting 15 years in prison if you kill someone in self-defense, to we are now legally allowed to use neo-pronouns and self-identify as native on government documents and medical records. I want you to know that I will be legally moving to the United States because this country has lost its mind and Trump is right just for the wrong reasons. We are a problem, but our problem is not drugs. That's nothing compared to the amount of overcorrection and DEI we've done as a society. I just want to say thank you for letting me voice my opinion, and want to know what your thought is, whether or not we've gone too far, because I sure as hell believe we have. All right, thank you very much, Brad. Love the show.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in and for your support. And I'll say this about Canada, particularly on some of this stuff and on some of the free speech stuff, is where they seem to have truly lost the plot. Like the whole Canadian trucker situation during COVID, I was horrified by that. The way they were like freezing their bank accounts and cracking down on people just for protesting. And it is just ridiculous that anybody or any country would treat neo pronouns, which, guys, if you don't know what that is, neo pronouns refers to the woke idea that you can have anything be a pronoun. So my pronouns could be slugs, slugs, snowball, snowballs. The idea that governments would enable and encourage that level of delulu is actually astonishing to me and deeply depressing, and shows how deep the rot is. Shows how deep some of these ideas are embedded in supposedly advanced, enlightened nations. And yeah, look, welcome. I hope you're able to come to the US legally and contribute. And I'm always welcoming of more legal immigrants who want to come to our country and add to it and contribute positively. And I agree with you. I think Trump's takes on Canada are very off base. Talking about them becoming the 51st state is ridiculous. They don't want to be a state. And why would we want them to be a state? Right? They would add a bunch of senators and representatives to Congress who would be so far left, they would make AOC look like a Republican. It's just one of those silly things. I don't think he's fully thought through. He just likes the idea of acquiring a big piece of land or something. So I agree with you. He is right to be critical of Canada, but some solutions there don't make a whole lot of sense. In addition, I don't support some of his trade actions towards Canada. I think we benefit from trade with Canada by and large. So I hope you're able to come to the US. And it is always amusing, but also depressing, the absolute state of things up north. What do you guys think? Have you encountered this kind of stuff in Canada or other countries? If you have, or if you have something else to share with the class, y'all, you can use the voice note option, link in the description, to send in a voice note for a future Voicemail Friday episode of the Brad versus Everyone podcast. All right, guys, that'll be it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please do make sure to subscribe if you aren't yet. Do hit that like button before you go. Remember, you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or other podcast platforms and bring us on the go with you. And with that, guys, we'll talk again real soon.